What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 701 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. We're going to be breaking down everything we feel like talking about that happened in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days, whether it is TV recap stuff, news, rumors, gossip, scuttlebutt, anything else we want to break down here. If you don't know who we are, I am Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert DeFelice.
Hey.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hello there.
Of course, I am always joined by all of you listening, so whether you are on any of the different platforms that you can listen to us, there are plenty of different ways for you to voice your opinions about these topics, agree or disagree with what we have to say. One of them is to join our Discord server. That's where we are recording this at the moment. And if you hop on over there, you'll see a bunch of different channels on the side. I actually reformatted them a little bit recently just to kind of scale down and make it a little bit simpler, because I really kind of didn't see the point in having a Raw chat, a SmackDown chat, an NXT chat, a Collision chat, a Dynamite chat, an ROH chat, all that. So we pretty much, at this point, we've got like the WWE chat, the pay-per-views, AEW/ROH, another one for the AEW pay-per-views, some indie stuff, you know, a little other Fanboys Anonymous kind of related content on there. So if you are anywhere in the Mango Tree sphere, then that is a great place for you to hang out and just chat it up with people at random. If you are on YouTube, though, make sure that you leave a comment below. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell, get all that stuff going. We'll come back to this a little bit later. I don't want to bog down too much. But I do want to get started with some of the hot tags that we've got going on here. Now, last dark cast that we did was about the releases that have happened over the past week or so in WWE. It was our like immediate reactions to it. It was us kind of breaking down, oh man, like we don't even have a moment to think about this, so let's talk about where we think that these people are going to go. Like, why release Shayna Baszler? Why release Gallus? You know, whatever it might be. And that was Rob and I. And then, you know, people over on the Discord, like we had discussions over there with Chris and Ash. And we didn't get Callum's thoughts on these releases. And also we've learned some more information in the meantime about why some of them have been released. And some of that information may not 100% apply to every single person, but you can kind of see a little bit of a pattern going on with at least some of the names here. So generally speaking, first things first, Callum, when you heard these releases, what were you thinking? Was anybody that stood out to you as like a big shock or like a surprise, or surprise that somebody necessarily didn't get cut compared to some of the other people, anything like that?
Oh, there's plenty of people that I'm surprised didn't get cut. But in terms of I won't say that because that sounds like a pretty mean thing to say, even though you know what woman I'm particularly sort of thinking about when I said that. But
actually, I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, it's Nikita Lyons.
Oh, well, yeah. Apparently she just gets sent down to the developmental of developmental.
Not even that. She's also going to be Masha Slamovich's tag team partner on TNA as well. So, you know, I guess if you support the right people, you're going to be going to make sure that your petition is secure. Out of the people that were released, you know, I mean, it's one of those ones where you can't be like particularly surprised about any of them really, because WWE does just, you know, it's a mixture of what's their current development like, are they being used, and how much money are they making comparative to how much they're being used. So all the ones, it doesn't shock me who was released. I mean, Strowman is the quote unquote biggest name, but considering all the things that were being said about him over WrestleMania weekend, it's actually not surprising at all that he got released, because seemingly they all had it out for him, especially Paul Heyman. But
yeah, I heard that the last thing he was involved in was Paul Heyman telling him, "You weren't on Mania because you sucked" during that roast, which is crazy.
He didn't even just say it on the roast; he said it on that Pat McAfee show afterwards, didn't he?
Oh, which is great. That's crazy.
Yeah,
like. Poor guy.
Baszler and Kai are interesting because it's one of those things where I can understand it due to like Baszler's like age and Dakota Kai's injury record, you can make sense about why they were released. But you've got a very good group of, or at least like interesting group of women coming through NXT. You need to have veterans on the main roster that can put them over and show them the ropes when they get up there. And if you release too many of that talent, you're essentially they're just going to have to be wrestling each other all the time to try and get better, and you don't get better by wrestling people who are at your experience level or lower. You get better by wrestling the more experienced names. So those two could have added a lot of value still. Tom Johns and Kaden Carter, they don't care about women's tag teams, so that's understandable from their perspective. Cora Jade, bad injury record, completely stunted, acceleration. I know I'm probably on an island because of the way we spoke about it, but I think that she sucks, and I just don't think that she's gotten any better since her first injury, and she's a terrible promo and everything about it, so that's kind of a good riddance one, really.
And you thought I was going to put her on my fantasy league team.
Yeah, well, as I say, you were right to avoid that one. Gigi Dolan, I think that's a bit it's a bit odd, that one, because like she was appearing on Raw with like fighting for the tag titles, but again, they don't care about women's tag teams, so she's gone. Same with Shotzi. Shotzi saw the writing on the wall, so kind of she cut that promo apparently because like she wasn't being given any assurances about whether her contract was being renewed or not, so she basically just jumped the gun and says, okay, I'm probably going to get released, so I'll just cut this promo on Twitter instead and see how that does for me, and then got confirmation that she was going to get released at the end of her contract. It's slightly different with the like not renewing a contract. That's totally fine. Anybody should be allowed to do that and part ways at the end of the contract. It's more of the sudden releases that are a bit odd. Eddie Thorpe, odd. He was getting pushed in NXT, it seemed like, but again,
yeah.
I don't think he has much potential beyond NXT, so that's not too surprising. Gallus, again, it seemed like Shawn Michaels liked them, but again, they're not going to get pushed to any significant level. The Riley Osborne thing kind of sucks a bit because like he's injured right now, isn't he? He recently had surgery, so
yeah.
So releasing someone while they've just had surgery, again, they did that with Cole Anderson a few months back as well. So it's not something that they're above doing, but it's not a good thing to do. Especially because they released his wife a few months earlier as well. So it's going very well for that family right now.
Supposedly that, at least, rumor, gossipy kind of perspective on Osborne is that there were other backstage problems. Now that nobody's clarified what that is, but I mean, I've been very skeptical that Blair Davenport wasn't really liked, and that is her husband, so I would assume that there's a good chance. Again, I have no fucking idea. I'm not backstage, so I'm just positing something as a fan. There's a good chance that if she wasn't well liked, that he was getting into arguments and stuff with people on her behalf, either just defending her as her husband, or if they're alike and they had the same issues with the same people or something. Whatever it might be, if they're singling him out as being like, Braun Strowman gets released because he's got a big contract and because his legs aren't working the same way and because he's showing up late and leaving early. Okay, that makes sense. And then you look at somebody like Riley Osborne, and if it's like he got fired for personal reasons, if they would have just said some of the people might have been, then that's a little different. But to single somebody out, there's probably some truth to that. Where there's smoke, there's fire, more often than not.
Well, who said that there was personal reasons?
I think it was Meltzer.
It's WWE PR fed through Meltzer and other sources, essentially. I mean, they're gonna.
Well, look,
I'm not.
That he tweeted out that because Blair got released, they had to back out of closing on a house. And yeah, at that point, you can kiss my ass too.
Oh, I mean, I would understand that from that perspective, 100%.
Yeah. It's also the issue of the fact that they're both British people in Trump's America right now. And so there's a very good chance that they'll get kicked out of the country if they don't find more sustainable work. So So there's that aspect of it as well. Just go through the remaining people just quickly. Jakara Jackson and Ora Mensah, that was obvious after they split up. Metaphor that at least one of them was getting released, so they got two of them out of there. Javier Bernal, that's like, it feels odd that he hasn't been released anytime sooner than this, so that's fine. And then Danny Palmer, based on stuff that she's put online, she's a bit of an idiot, so I don't really mind her being released either. So.
She's also now said that she's done with wrestling. She's just giving up. And
she's done athletically, is what she said.
Athletically?
Hey, you leave the wrestling before the wrestling leaves you. But yeah, as I say, all the releases, you can understand it just based on WWE's track record of getting rid of people. But yeah, that's kind of just the overall fault. And the stuff that they have been putting up about, like through the PR networks, about certain people not training hard enough or anything along those lines. I think it's, as I say, these could all very well be true, but there's also the argument that they're just using PR to kind of justify their decisions to do it, rather than just saying, well, we need to always be turning a profit, and the best way to turn a profit is to cut people's contracts.
Everybody listening to this podcast long enough knows how we feel about a lot of different things, politics, corporations. So it's like, you're not going to hear any defense from us about, corporations need to constantly be making more money, and they constantly need to be devaluing their employees and firing people just so that they can say, well, we moved up 0.01% of a thing in each fucking quarter or something. But at the same time, it is understandable if some people are just on the lower end of the pecking order. And if you're a middle management person and you're told, I don't fucking care about the humanity behind anything, it's your ass or you have to fire other people, you gotta look around and you gotta fire people or something, you're gonna probably target the people that you think are making more money than what they are outputting, at least. Like, somebody like a Braun Strowman, I'm disappointed that he got released, but at the same time, I understand it, releasing him more than, they're not going to cut Braun Breaker. There's some stuff that you kind of do that, but man, it's hard to see when like Tatum Paxley, she loses her husband and both of her tag team partners in one fell swoop.
That is crazy. Like, what? So you better have something for her than if you're going to make sure that she stays on the roster. Because, kind of like Callum said, I'm of the opinion that, hey, if you've got nothing for these people and they're not being utilized, sure, let them go, but don't hold them for 30 or 90 days. Let them go find work immediately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm of that belief. And
if you see value in them, that you are afraid of what that 90 days can be or something, then why are you firing them? And if you don't see any value in it, then why are you waiting anyway?
I mean, the 90 days, it depends on the person, realistically, because the 90 days is meant to be a bit of a settling period for the people. They're going to get paid for the remaining 90 days so they can get their affairs in order and decide what's going to be next for them, whether that's like finding more work in wrestling. I mean, some people will just want to go into work straight away and say, okay, I don't care about the 90 days, just let me go out immediately. I'll be on, Dynamite or MLW or Impact the very next day if you let me do that. But for some people, that 90 days can be a nice opportunity for them to, because as I say, for a lot of them, because the releases have come so suddenly, that their kind of lives are turned upside down, so they want a bit of time to make sure, okay, money's coming in for the next 90 days still, I'm not going to be in too much of a rush. So I can understand the reason why they do it. The bigger issue is more of the fact that so much of the leverage is in WWE's court when it comes to this stuff, because they sign them to such long contracts and they can cut them without any kind of recourse whatsoever. So that's the bigger issue, is the fact that they can just cut people at any point in time and not face any repercussions for it, really.
I would hope that there would be, and I don't know if this is the case, and I highly doubt it because we never see it happen, but I would hope that there would be something where it would be like you have the option of being paid for your 90 days, or you have the option of forfeiting that money to be able to go work somewhere like an AEW or something. You can like choose to do that. And then if somebody does want to just be like, yeah, I have it lined up that like I'm going to go straight to AEW, and man, it would be really nice if I could pop up at this pay-per-view that's happening in 40 days, then it would be like, all right, we'll pay for those 40 days. And then now you're gone. And now we don't pay for the rest of it. That would be a money saving thing. And you would think that if it's all about money, that WWE would want to put that kind of stuff in place. But I don't understand how contracts work and, you know, all that kind of crap. And I'm sure that there's some kind of like, well, statute 411 PA 12 is this, and, you know, some kind of bullshit like that.
Well, yeah, as I say, they've always been leveraged on their side, but like it's a case of what realistically should be the case if they were truly the independent contractors that they claim them to be, is that if they were to release them prior to the conclusion of their contract, the wrestlers should be paid the entirety of the remainder of that contract. Like,
true.
If they've got, if like Strowman had 2 or 3 years left on his contract, he should be paid the entirety of the 2 or 3 years that he was left to be paid, rather than whatever he would be getting for the next 90 days and then cut off there. But again, as I say, they're allowed to get away with it, and so they're going to continue to do so.
Now, contracts are confusing, and it seems like we've got another story that has to deal with that, of what seemed like if we would have done this podcast a couple days ago, then, you know, the perception of what this means would shift a little bit over the course of the past few days, because a bunch of AAA talent has signed WWE contracts now. And originally when this came out, I saw a lot of people, and I had this reaction too, of just being like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. They signed Alberto Del Rio to a WWE contract. We're gonna see this goddamn guy popping up, and it's gonna be, you know, like he's gonna show up on WWE TV now and all this. And it's since come out that the way that the contract situation works in Mexico is essentially that WWE had to give them different contracts, or else it would be like a major legal snafu. And since they are now going to own 51% of the company, it was like they needed to restructure that way. And it's more of a formality of just signing everybody for a contract than it is to actually sign like, okay, well, that means that we want to use La Parca going forward, or, you know, whoever it might be. I don't know most of the names. So I'm a little bit less concerned about that. And now I'm kind of assuming that this is one of those contract things where maybe the contracts might end up being like very temporary until they restructure new ones or something. And maybe it might just be something where it's technically a WWE contract and they work for AAA, but that doesn't mean that they're going to use any of them going forward. And I'm just hoping that overall, because I'm not going to watch AAA. I know it. I'll watch Worlds Collide, but I'm not going to watch the AAA pay-per-views and stuff. Even if it's like, you know, hey, we got Rey Mysterio popping down on this. Don't you want to see it? No. I can't watch enough wrestling. I don't fucking care. But Vikingo, yeah, sure. Put him on Raw or SmackDown or NXT or something. I'll watch that. Del Rio, no, I'm going to be tweeting and everything about how much I hate that. So I'm a little bit less worried about that now, but it is technically a news story of, you know, these people are being signed under WWE contracts now. And we did hear about Rey Mysterio was planned, of course, to be on the Worlds Collide thing. Now that injury is going to step that in different direction. Seems like nothing's being announced for that yet. So, you know, it is what it is. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but you guys have any thoughts about this AAA thing? Any other news revolving around that you guys like or dislike?
If I was asked to watch Del Rio regularly, that might break me. I might be like, yep, can't do it. With everything, and I know that sounds strange with all the other stuff that I continue to watch WWE through, but specifically with everything that this man has been accused of, the fact that he's still just wrestling, even when it's the funny photo of him in front of 30 people, the fact that he's still going does bother me greatly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw it as a bit of a, I want to say like a non-story, but it just kind of made sense to me. It's like, well, yeah, WWE is the majority owner of AAA now, so yeah, of course they're going to sign. They have to sign their wrestlers to their contracts. I didn't expect it to change anything beyond the fact that it just adds a bit more security to the certain players that they still want to use in AAA going forward, and that includes Alberto Del Rio. So yeah, I think we have to just wait and see who is brought in for this Worlds Collide show and what's associated with all of that, because if Del Rio does have a prominent position to be in, which wouldn't be surprising considering the fact that I believe he is still the AAA Mega Champion, so it would be a bit odd to not have the promotion's world champion appear on a Worlds Collide show, or a show which is supposed to be featuring the best of AAA and the best of NXT. But yeah, we might be seeing a bit more of him going forward. So that's just the way that I kind of see it happening. I mean, God damn it! Like, you've seen these stuff, like the recent full matches they've been putting onto the YouTube channel. They're bringing Brock back soon. So why wouldn't they bring Del Rio in?
Oh, are you one of those people who believes that they're bringing Brock back because they've been sharing his stuff?
Yeah. Well, why? Like, you don't go from persona non grata to then WWE's fine showing your stuff. It's the baby step approach they always take when they're bringing in someone who's a little bit controversial.
Well, he was never fully removed or anything. Like,
no, he's
Brock
not been
is still
released.
there.
He's still contracted, but it's a case of I think a lot of people either assumed or hoped that they would just, he would just fulfill the remainder of his contract and then just be let go once the contract was over. But they're going to bring him back and he's going to do stuff again. So
I don't know. I don't think there's much for him to do at this point, because even the Gunther match, I lost interest. Like,
I lost interest in that partially just because Gunther is falling down considerably for me. They're fucking up Gunther so much.
I think the more realization that we have to get from this point is that the Brock Lesnar coming back is not for us.
Yeah.
So
God, it feels like everything that's happening these days is not for us.
Well, yeah, the AAA thing.
On the luchador side of things, El Grande Americano, again, not necessarily for us. He won the Speed Championship. So, anybody who watches Speed, there you go.
Congratulations, Chad Gable. He fulfilled his New Year's resolution to win a singles title. It's on X and nobody's watching, but that's okay. He did it. Good for him.
Yeah, and so it's like they seem to be into the gimmick, and he had to beat a Mexican superstar to win it. So,
who do you guys think? I mean, it's just, when it comes to
who we think is going to be the next Speed champion? Who cares?
You asked me this already. Did I tell you Ray Phoenix? I feel like I did this on a podcast.
Did we? Or did we do that just outside of it?
I think we did it outside of Backlash. Like, either way, it's Ray Phoenix. I think it's Ray Phoenix.
When do you think that the mask is going to be unmasked at this point?
Worlds Collide.
I don't think they'd waste it. Well, I'd say waste it on that one. That's it's an NXT thing. I think they'll try and stretch it out to SummerSlam probably.
No, that's a. If you're on the main roster and you count as a luchador, you're on that thing too.
Yeah, but they won't unmask him on that show.
I think he'll wrestle on it, but he'll beat somebody and it'll be like a, grr, see that guy in the future kind of thing. As far as we're aware, there's not like another Worlds Collide thing set up yet. This is probably the only event that they're going to do a crossover for the entire year. Maybe, I don't know. But
well, the Garzas are going to Triple Mania. I guess that's technically a WWE production now.
we're talking contracts and people and then out of the company and all. The Righteous have left All Elite Wrestling / Ring of Honor. Vincent and Dutch were not people that I was like particularly paying a whole lot of attention to, but immediately I saw a bunch of people being like, oh, Karrion Kross posted a thing with like their theme song, and that means that they're coming in. I don't think WWE's picking them up.
Man, there's a world where you take those three and you put them together on somebody's TV, and that's a money angle. I don't think it's WWE in the year 2025, but there's a world. I just don't know where it is.
Yeah. I mean, by all accounts, the Righteous requested their release, and their contract was going to expire towards the end of this year, and so they just let them out earlier, which is fine. They weren't using them at all, and if they wanted to go, they wanted to go. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they pop up next. I can definitely see, like, you know, all the regular kind of tier promotions, your GCWs, your TNAs, your MLWs. They could probably pop up pretty much anywhere. WWE is a long shot, but I don't think it's out of the question that they go in if they can get on like a pretty low deal and bring him in to be like aligned with someone like a Karrion Kross. I think that WWE seems to be putting a bit more attention back on tag team wrestling recently, so it wouldn't be out of the question if they signed him.
Let's see, completely random topic here, but hey, we need some good news in the world. Big E is engaged to Mia Yim's sister.
I love that. I love that. You know, Big E, on the New Day podcast, at least, he seemed like he was kind of not adverse to the idea of marriage, but, you know, kind of like how some people do, where it's just whatever and it might not happen for them. So to see him happy and everything working out for him in that way, I love that. It makes me really happy.
Yeah, it would just be your typical congratulations to the happy couple. I hope that it goes all goes swimmingly for them. I'm sure it will. Yeah, Big E Keith Lee tag team coming up soon. two guys that we wish could still wrestle that seemingly can't wrestle anymore.
That
Big E Keith Lee versus New Day would be a lot of fun.
The family like get-togethers. You got like a Thanksgiving dinner, for instance. It's Big E, Keith Lee, Michin. You know, like that's probably fun house.
Jesus, I'd hate to see the bill for that Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, congrats to Big E, and I don't know her name off the top of my head, but Mia Yim's sister.
I think it's Chris.
Chris, congrats to them.
Yeah,
there's very few good things to report these days when things are happening the way that they are because people voted the way that they did. Fuck you if you did. Anyway, I got to put that in on every podcast now because people need to know that stuff.
And here I was thinking that everybody hated Chris.
I have another random topic. Let's just talk about this one. Joe Hendry is apparently the number 2 ranked merchandise seller in WWE at the moment. He's behind Roman Reigns, and he's above Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and Jey Uso. So the non-WWE guy, number 2.
So I'll shout this person out. So Ibu on Twitter was responding to something that said, you know, it's basically a lock that he's going to go to WWE. And he made the comment that he's not sure how much more energy the I Believe stuff will have by next year. And I gotta say, I kind of agree with that. If you're already getting, you know, the money for merchandise for this guy, do you sign him to a long-term deal hoping that the meme energy carries on? I feel comfortable saying that. I don't feel like I'm being a dick. It is meme energy. You know?
It totally is. And there's a very, very, I would say it's a guarantee that like eventually people are going to get tired of it because it's like anything else. Like a joke meme type of response does wane over time. And I would assume that they would be more willing to sign him just because they are like, well, he actually fits the type of model that we like in like an employee. Like we want somebody with his mind and we like his mic skills and that kind of thing. But then that's already like, we could forecast this once he gets to WWE, if they start changing things. And then it's like, well, maybe now you should make a new song and you should do this and whatever like that. Then people are going to go, I remember when that used to be good. And now it's just like been homogenized by WWE. And then things fall apart from that point. But then again, some things that seem like they're meme responses carry on for fucking forever. Look at the what chant. You know? I don't think Joe Hendry turning around is going to stick around as long as that, but like, you never know what's going to stick.
I mean, to be clear, like, I do miss the days of when, like, if you look at his ICW stuff where he's doing, like, the unique parodies for every match he's in or whatever, that's good stuff. I'd like to see him get back to more of that instead of just the one theme song and then people pop for a minute and then he loses to Randy Orton in 3 minutes. You know, like, he is very talented. I just think that this iteration of Joe Hendry cannot last forever.
Yeah, I think that, like, we could all see the writing on the wall of he signs sometime this year for WWE, and he's probably part of the round of releases in the spring of 2027 when they've run out of steam, and he's done the babyface thing for a while with his gimmick, and it's run its course over the year. He's had an ill-fated heel turn, and now he's just and then he's just released from the company. That's like, I can already see the pattern in my mind. But for him, it's like, yeah, he should definitely take it and take the opportunity to see where it leads him. I don't think that he's a particularly great wrestler. He's fine. Like, he's a perfectly competent wrestler, but the thing that sets him apart is the meme energy that he brings. But it's probably more of a question of how much of that, of his own creativity that he puts into his character work, is he going to be allowed to do? When is it going to be that WWE creative writers, backstage personnel are going to be saying, oh, maybe you should do this instead, or do that? Is that going to become like a frustrating environment for him, or is he going to be quite a good soldier about it? I think, considering the way they treated him in the match against Randy Orton, yeah, they'll big it up by saying, oh, we gave you the match against Randy Orton at WrestleMania, that shows how serious we are in you. But yeah, you had him beat him in about 3 minutes, so you're not actually that serious about him. Like, he'll be treated, at least initially, like a Santino Marella R-Truth type character. And then it's whether he gets their sort of longevity that they were given, where they would win the occasional mid-card title and still be featured fairly prominently on TV every now and again, or whether they just lose interest and decide to move on. That's his ceiling. His ceiling is R-Truth.
I mean, R-Truth's been around forever, and yeah, that's there's a worse ceiling to be under than R-Truth, at least.
I'm not. I wasn't saying that as like a derogatory thing for him. I was saying that is something to actually aspire to, is to be the next R-Truth in WWE. But yeah, I'd say that's almost like aspirational, isn't it? Because it's difficult to be the next R-Truth, because people don't maintain a level of attachment and comedic charm with the fans for like 10 plus years for no reason. Like, you have to be really, really good at it. So, and Hendry has that, has shown potential to be that. It's just whether they can, whether they will be able to capitalize it and maintain on it, rather than it like just going back to the same joke over and over again. Because R-Truth isn't the same goofball that he was 10 years ago. He's a slightly different goofball.
Oh, if you are interested in buying merchandise for Joe Hendry, you know where to find it. But if you're interested in merchandise for Smark Out Moment, Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can pick that up. Thank you to the person who picked up a random shirt earlier today. I highly doubt that it was specifically for them going to Smark Out Moment and doing that. They probably just liked the design or something. But yeah, I'll take it. I'll take $1 each time. Check that out if you're interested in helping support us. And of course, if you do have a little spare change you want to toss our way and help us out and keep the lights on and keep me from going completely insane, then the join button on YouTube or the Patreon are the two best means to do that and to show your support and to get something in return, whether it's like the Pick Your Poison tier where you get to actually say like, I want you guys to do this kind of a podcast, or to do like an article or something like that. It could always be the article things. People always ignore that too when it comes to that. It's always typically podcast related, but you know, if you wanted an article, then you could sponsor it that way. The Darkcast tier, of course, is another thing, and we will be opening up the Discord service at some point when I settle that a little bit. It's just been too busy for me to sort that out for the time being, so still playing around with that a little bit too, and that's why we were able to get people for the Darkcast in the last time and everything. Keep that in mind. Toss a little spare change our way through the thanks button too, and keep in mind about the super chats when we go live for different things. That's another means to just kind of spread the wealth a little bit and help us out. And I guess let's switch over to I don't know. Let's go with Javon Evans and Ricochet having an argument on Twitter where, among other things, Javon Evans called Tony Khan a crackhead. And they argued about the size of the arenas, which neither look great coming out of this, and both say things that make perfect sense as well. And I don't know. I don't quite see the point in going back and forth like that, but I guess when people get their egos hurt, then they feel the need to just kind of take digs at other people, and then, you know, that like snowballs from that, and then it's like, no, fuck you, well, fuck you, that kind of a thing. Javon deleted one of the tweets, and then it continued to go beyond that point. The speculation could be partially because of Sexy Red saying something about Shawn Michaels doing coke back in the day.
I'm pretty sure that's a fake tweet. Almost certain that's a fake tweet.
Probably, but I mean, weird news story coming around when it comes to that. Like I said, I think that they're both in the right and they're both in the wrong about this whole thing. Like, you know, you can rag on Ricochet for not being in the biggest audience anymore, but then you got to think about All In. And then you see Ricochet making fun of the Performance Center, and it's like, yeah, well, you did that too at that stage of your career. And it's like, well, you're both kind of acting like dicks.
I mean, again, maybe this is just the AEW bias going through, but I don't see how Ricochet's in any way in the wrong. And
didn't he start
that's his. Well, yeah, but that's his gimmick on Twitter. His gimmick on Twitter is that he's a bit of a troll, and that's part of his heel gimmick. He's been doing that since he left for AEW. So you know what you're getting when you go into this sort of battle with Ricochet. And I think Ricochet does it. He's always done it in a good-natured way. He does it because everyone has always been on his back about, oh, you've left WWE and you've gone down to the minor leagues. And so he just plays into that by just talking about how much fun he's having in AEW now, and how he's now like, oh, the company that killed my love for professional wrestling, and now I'm back doing something, back to my best again. And so he's pretty much like made a persona about that, and he does just some fun tweets on Twitter, and Javon Evans decided to get in with it, which is totally fine. Like, he's more than welcome to do that. But then it was the references to the small crowds and the crackhead boss that is probably like when he goes a little bit too into what I would say is that he's drunk the WWE Kool-Aid quite a bit. And so like that whole narrative about how they've got the small crowds and the whole like second-rate show and the weird crackhead boss, like that's probably the stuff that he's being fed by producers and people behind the scenes in WWE, and also just the general weird freakazoid WWE audience that is cultivated on Twitter, and he seems to be perfectly part of that. I mean, I get into the idea of like, I know people have been saying, oh, that kind of, if hope you're never released in one of these random cuts that just happened just, you know, a few days before you put those tweets out, because calling your potential other employer the guy that gives you, you know, leverage over whether you get a bigger contract or not, a crackhead, is not exactly the best way to endear yourself to get hired if you were to be released. I mean, if I was Tony Khan, I wouldn't care about that. I'd care more about the fact that he's clearly a fucking idiot. like that's just it. Like Javon Evans is clearly a stupid man, so I wouldn't really trust myself with hiring a man that is clearly that moronic. But yeah, that's that whether he wants to do it or not, that's totally fine. That's like Javon Evans is doing well in WWE. Hopefully, he never does find himself on the chopping block. But WWE will fire anybody for any reason if they feel like it serves their better interest. And Javon Evans is definitely not in a safe position as someone like a Roman Reigns or a Bianca Belair. He's definitely further down the list of people if they're looking for someone to chop than they are. So
I'm of the belief that there are very few people that are that safe these days. Maybe 5 to 10 people at most. But so I'll just describe how I found out about this. Someone sent this to me, and my immediate reaction was, well, surely he was hacked. Like, you're not calling Tony Khan a crackhead. And then I looked the rest of his feed and saw that he does do the every word is capitalized thing, like he's Ric Flair for some reason.
Why do people do that?
And then I was just along the lines of, hey, maybe don't call the guy who is going to hire you if you get released a crackhead. Maybe just don't do that. Maybe that's not the move. As far as the small crowd size thing, like I saw a lot of people with the tribalism be like, yeah, and fuck the performance center. The crowd size thing is dumb. We shouldn't expect everything to do WrestleMania numbers. Can we stop that? Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But that's an annoying thing that everything has to be like, well, it has to be a crazy sellout and millions of people, and it's just an annoying thing. But yeah, calling Tony a crackhead, very stupid. Like just, and also like crazy. It's crazy super online stuff because who's calling Tony a crackhead outside of weirdos on Twitter?
yeah, who's called him a crackhead when the guy that he's working for is a reformed crackhead? Like Javon Evans, like Shawn Michaels is. Everyone knows what Shawn Michaels was up to, but you're not gonna like say that about your boss. But I mean, the thing that I find the most annoying about that whole reference is not the fact that there are loads of losers on Twitter that say that stuff about Tony Khan anyway, when basically anyone that's worked with him says that he's a pretty nice guy. But the saddest thing is that Tony Khan gave Javon Evans work. Like Jay Malachi did wrestle on Dark and was given one shots for AEW. So he paid him at a time where he probably needed money more than he needs it now. And that's what he says about him still. That's just a really disgusting way to approach things. Like a guy that took you in when you were a young kid and gave you a few opportunities, which probably helped you get signed by WWE in the first place. And you just say that's about him offhandedly. It's just it's either stupidness or rudeness, and either way, I think that it should rankle Tony Khan a bit in terms of whether he would give him an opportunity should the possibility arise in the future.
Like I said, I think that both parties are wrong because if I'm correct, and it was Ricochet was the first one being like, oh, fuck that guy, I'm better than him. That's not in your company. And realistically speaking, you don't need to fire a shot at somebody who's completely unrelated to what you got going on. That's kind of being a dick. It's not you're welcoming that kind of response back and forth. And, whether it's hurting somebody's feelings or if it's just generally being an asshole because you're doing something that's it's not like you're going oh, fuck that guy, I'm going to beat him on Dynamite or something. You're not going to have a match. And if you were Javon Evans and you're checking your feed and you're wait, what the fuck? Why is this person saying this about me? Okay, well then fuck you. But then again, it's okay, well that's not the good response. Because then at the same time, why are you bringing Tony Khan into there? Tony Khan's not the one saying that about you. It's Ricochet. So you should fire back at Ricochet and make it about that. And then, everybody ends up blind kind of in that scenario. I think both need to be sat down and be like, you both fucked up. There's better ways to do this.
No, Ricochet continues doing it. He didn't fuck up at all.
So somebody should take shots at other people from other companies just on a whim and just be like, fuck that person?
Well, it was a joke. Yeah, fine. Like, I think that's totally fine. It's like, I wouldn't even care if Javon Evans just went fire back at Ricochet. It's the mentioning about Tony Khan stuff and just AEW in general, which is the bigger issue. Like,
and I think that the whole
Ricochet,
thing
that's totally fine.
Started with Ricochet doing something he shouldn't have done. So Javon made it worse, but Ricochet shouldn't have done it to begin with.
Well, do you actually have the tweet out that he put forward to John Evans first? Because I can't find anything about like him being the first one to fire a shot at.
I think someone asked him about Javon, and he said, "I'll smack Lil Bro up too," or something like that.
Or something like I forget. I don't remember because like all this stuff. Like I tend not to care.
Like I was doing what you're doing when you were 12 years old, or something like that.
But yeah, that was in response to Javon Evans' tweet that he'd since deleted. I think that, like I say, that was just a fan asking about him, and he did an in-character, in-gimmick response. And Javon Evans took offense to that.
Here's the thing, though. If you do this without the Tony Khan crackhead mention, then everybody's writing articles about how, ooh, WWE star and AEW star go back and forth, and not Javon Evans meltdown calls Tony Khan crackhead.
Yeah.
You know, like I was seeing on social media today. Like, there's a way to do it.
It's like, a lot of other scenarios where somebody made a remark, so then that person pushed the other one, and then now that person punched the other one, and then now that person is, arrested or something. It's like, you're all children. Knock it the fuck off.
They're professional wrestlers, of course. They're just grown children. That's what you kind of. It's one of the requisite to be a professional wrestler. Is you need to be a bit of a grown child. So as I say, I don't have any issue with people sparring on Twitter if they just keep it to themselves. It's when you bring other people into the mix where that don't merit it, and especially ones that are going to probably cost you future employment opportunities if the possibility arises. So. That's why I kind of see it. Like, I don't think anybody would even be discussing it or have any issue with it if Javon never mentioned Tony Khan. So
most likely not. Now we will get into like some TV talk and stuff, but one of the things that we never talk about because there was never really a reason to, so we might as well talk about this one first, is Evolve. And I've seen every episode of Evolve at this point. And by seen, I mean I've seen it, not that I've watched all the episodes, because I cannot get invested in this show. I've tried, and I just do not care about 90% of the roster on here. They're just wrestlers. They're just people that are going out there and having a match. It's, don't you want to see, I don't know, Draco Knox against Ice Williams, and then Hayes Jamison against, and it's their names. I'll care individually when I can care about each one, and then we'll see. But it is what it is, and we are in a situation now where they're finally unveiling information about the championships. Stevie Turner, who is basically the general manager, even though the first episode of Evolve started off with Shawn Michaels being like, and here's the keys of the kingdom, Ava. And she's like, great, I'm going to pass it off to somebody else. Prime Minister, Stevie Turner, as Prime Minister, she has unveiled the 2 championships, and they look exactly the same. They just have the Evolve logo, the white strap for the women's title with the word women's. That's the only differences between them. They're fine. They're about as good of belts as you can imagine. And maybe there's some better lighting can make them pop a little bit more or something. Maybe they just look a little bit bland to me, but we now know what the whole setup is for how they're going to crown those too. And gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of it. They're going to do 2 fatal 4-ways in a couple weeks. In 3 weeks, the women's title is going to be crowned, and in 4 weeks, the men's title. And they haven't announced everybody that is going to be on the lineup for that. We know 3 of the women are going to be Callie Armstrong, Kendall Gray, and Wendy Chu. And the 4th one is kind of up in the air. They're basically hinting at the idea that it's either going to be Zeta Steele or Nikita Lyons. And the men's, the only name that they announced was Super Sean Legacy. And then there was a whole kerfuffle. Keanu Carver and Harlem Lewis got into a thing, and then she didn't announce anybody else because for some reason when people start arguing, you can't just talk. It's not just like, hey, everybody stop it. Okay, anyway, the rest of my announcement was such and such. I would assume Carver and Lewis are 2 of the other 4 people. And the 4th spot maybe goes to Lexus King. He popped up and started a feud with Sean Legacy and all. It's a possibility because they have him feuding with him now.
Why? Why are we moving people down from NXT? Okay, whatever. Go ahead.
So obviously, I know that you guys do not watch the show, so I can't be like, are you heavily invested in Callie Armstrong? You'd be like, who the fuck is Callie Armstrong?
I do like Callie Armstrong. I watched enough of her on Level Up to know she's got something that can be turned into something even better.
Most of these people have at least something where it's like, I can see why they are at least interested in them. But I would also say most of these people are so green or they're so generic in a lot of ways that it's like, okay, but I'm not seeing anything that I should care about. You know, like even at this point, still Kendall Gray. I'm like, Kendall Gray to me has just as much of value to her as practically every single other person on the roster. So like, what is it that makes her stand out as one of the main 4 women? I don't quite see it. You could fill that spot in with
her and Carly Bright on NXT.
Mm-hmm.
They were showing her to be someone who was clearly better at the wrestling aspect of wrestling than her tag partner, and was even throwing around some of the members of NQCC, one of which I think just won the #1 contendership for the top NXT title.
Yeah, so we'll talk about him for sure. He's the thumbnail.
She should be pushed. I like her and I like Callie. I don't know the other. Well, obviously,
you don't want to.
Person. We don't know if it's going to be Nikita or Zeta Steele. If it was Zeta Steele, I'd consider going Zeta Steele. But if it's Nikita, please, for the love of God, just put the title on Kendall Gray or Callie Armstrong.
I'm not going to support Nikita Lyons winning that championship. She's regressed. And
yeah, we're trying to evolve, not just,
yeah,
that's devolving.
Devolve. I like Zeta Steele. She's got more personality than most of the other people on the roster, and she seems like she's got a lot of upsides to her when it comes to like the Vanity Project is like easily the thing running Evolve right now. And I like Sean Legacy too, from what I've seen. Like he seems like a very safe, albeit generic in some ways, type of guy that would be like, hey, yeah, I could see him being the Evolve champion and all.
He was in the Battle Royal. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, he did a good job in Battle Royal. The 3-week thing and the 4-week thing from now, when they crown these champions, that'll be a future hot tag, and it'll be mostly like, oh, that's what happened. Anyway, moving on, because we just don't seem to get all that invested in there. But I also wanted to talk just a moment about LFG, because the last episode started to do what they were calling the LFG playoffs, where they actually eliminated some people. They eliminated essentially half of the field. And I was a little bit surprised about that, because I didn't anticipate it to go that quickly, to just be like, all right, and then, each team has to eliminate one of the men and one of the women. But if anybody is following that show and they, for some reason, they get their news through the hot tags, the people that were eliminated on the past episode were Anthony Luke was taken out as opposed to Jasper Troy. BJ Ray moved on, and Drake Moreau was eliminated. Between Chris Island and Troy Yearwood, Chris Island moved on. And between Elijah Holyfield and Shiloh Hill moved on. Lee Laurel was eliminated to keep Penina Twilepa. Serena Linton was eliminated to keep on Danny Ray or Danny Sikelski. I don't know why they're going with the one name when they trademarked the other one or something, but okay. Zena Sterling stayed on, and Tatiana Dumas was eliminated. And then the one that actually shocked me was Undertaker took out Bailey Humphrey and kept Tyra May Steele. I honestly was kind of thinking that Bailey had a chance to quote unquote win this, scripted competition.
As opposed to the Olympic gold medalist?
Yeah, because I thought that she was improving quicker and, she's more impressive in a lot of ways. But at this point, they are going to eliminate some more people. I don't know how many people they're going to eliminate on the next episode, but I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, they're pretty much setting up, at least I would assume, the final two men to be BJ Ray and Jasper Troy. There's a chance Shiloh Hill could be in there. It's not going to be Chris Island. And for the women, I don't think Danny Sikelski gets there. I don't think Panina does. I think it's between Tyra and Xena. And overall, I think Xena ends up winning that. Now, both of you have never seen a single episode of this, right?
Correct.
I know that Callum.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
For anybody that's curious, it's very different from the Evolve thing, where it almost seems, and it's weird because it's like you would think that a show that's basically like Tough Enough would essentially imply if you're fighting for an NXT contract that you aren't signed. Yet it seems like the Evolve people are the ones that are less signed to the company than the LFG ones. And some of those did pop up on NXT this week. Shiloh Hill did a pretty good job in the Royal Rumble, or the Battle Royal. Chris Island was in there. He was the very first eliminated, so that's not necessarily a great sign for that. But I'm assuming we're going to see all of these men and women popping up here and there. And I guess they're recording some stuff for the next season, and Serena was among the other people that were in there. So maybe they're just going to bring these people back as like, second chance things or something. I don't know. But I would recommend people check this out. It's a more interesting show to me than Evolve. And if you want to check out any of the coverage on that, then go to smarkandmoment.com, because, of course, we have pretty much everything covered on there. And lately, those have been covered in very high detail, way more detail than I would be covering it, from Alessandro. He's doing a hell of a job. So shout out to Alessandro. And, check out his LFG and Evolve stuff. Another episode of LFG coming up this weekend. Wanted to get that stuff out of the way there before we bounce back around to the other TV things that people are more interested in. On SmackDown last week, we had a couple of things that mostly, for the most part, we don't really need to talk about. Like, Fraxian beat Pretty Deadly. Okay, moving on. Aleister Black beats The Miz, etc. They set up some stuff for this week, and this is basically the only interesting story, at least as far as I'm concerned. Jade Cargill and Naomi are in a number one contenders match, and the winner is not necessarily going to face Tiffany Stratton at Saturday night's main event, but I think that there's a very good chance that that's how this plays out. I think that this isn't going to end with either of them winning. I think that Naomi is going to come out and interfere, and it's going to turn into a four-way. But if she interferes and it's not a four-way, she costs Jade Cargill the match. And then it's just a means to get Nia and Tiffany to do one more match. Tiffany retains. Jade and Naomi have another match to be like, let's settle the score. Let's do a, street fight or something. I don't know. And it's one of those two options to me. I don't think Jade wins. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think it's going to end up being a four-way. And I much like you, I think they're just going to push it to Saturday night's main event at this point. They could always put it on the schedule for tomorrow, but I think it'll be Saturday night's main event.
They already have 5 matches for tomorrow. So the way that they've been doing that lately, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, I don't think that any match, whether it will be, is not going to end up on a Backlash. You'll probably be pushed back to either an episode of SmackDown or Saturday night's main event. And the four-way seems to make the most sense. That seems to be what they were pushing in that tag match from last week. That seemed to be the approach they would take. So the alternative is that they just do Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton at some point, and then do another Naomi and Jade Cargill match with a stip attached to it instead, or more of a no DQ match. But I think they'll probably just go with the 4-way.
So of course, stay tuned to SmackDown tonight. We'll see what happens there. You'll see reports on whatever end up being the results on that. Let's go back to Monday Night Raw. Paul Heyman starts off with a promo and sets up a whole thing with Seth Rollins challenging Jey Uso, which eventually turns into a thing with Braun Breaker getting involved and Sami Zayn getting involved, and then CM Punk coming out, and then after they go off the air, Logan Paul punches Jey Uso, and they just get a little social media plug on that front. I'm going to repeat something that I've been saying since even before Jey won the title. Not feeling it. I kind of want Rollins to win that title already. And it seems like they're going to do the Logan Paul match as Saturday night's main event too. And then we're going to drag out the Seth Rollins thing just a little bit longer. I'm kind of hoping that it happens as soon as possible though.
I think the Heyman promo to start the show is great. It's been clipped to death already with him, crashing out and saying, "I'm always a scumbag, but I'm in the right." I've seen a lot of great memes formed from that.
My favorite one so far has been, this is what happens when you have a narcissistic mother.
Yeah, basically that one cracks me up too. I thought this was a strong part of the show, and in terms of how it was built and what it did, I like the angle. I think it's, something that's been missing from WWE TV, where it felt like, hey, you should tune into Raw because you might have seen Seth Rollins win the title. You did miss CM Punk returning to WWE or to Raw after being attacked by Heyman's crew. The only negative I have here is Jey Uso looks like shit, and it already seems like they don't care about him as champion.
The moment passed by. They're like, we got everybody to, still at this point do the one more time. I don't understand what's so great about the entrance, but people like the entrance.
Because people are at a live show and they want to be a part of the act. It's the Family Guy sketch of the musical where they start singing in the crowd and they're like, it's a better show because we're trying to involve you. That's what this is.
Well, as far as the Rollins thing goes, the next couple events are, we got Saturday night's main event technically, but that's going to be Logan Paul. Battleground is NXT. That doesn't count either. Worlds Collide. No, that, Jey Uso's not losing the title there. Money in the Bank would be the next one. And then right after that is Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. And then Evolution, of course, that's not going to happen on Evolution. And then another Saturday night's main event on July 12th. So if they drag it out to SummerSlam in August, I'm going to be really antsy to just be like, oh my God, Jey doesn't need to hold the title that long. I could see it happening at Money in the Bank. I could see it happening at Night of Champions. And I'm just sort of looking at my watch at this point. I'm past it. He can still do the entrance without holding that title.
Yeah, I'd say Money in the Bank, if anything.
For the record, I don't want Braun Breaker to win Money in the Bank and then cash in. A lot of people saying that. Yeah, I'm like, that. No, Seth is the one that needs to win the title, not Braun Breaker. Now, Braun can win the Money in the Bank, and Seth can win the title at Money in the Bank, and then it could be excuse for why he doesn't cash in, and then eventually Braun can cash in on Seth or something. But yeah, I don't know why everybody's jumping straight to the end of the story with Braun. Well, impatience. That's what is happening. What do you guys make of these rumors that we might see Goldberg or Jeff Cobb at Backlash?
In what context?
Well, the only thing I can really think of is that Goldberg either shows up to attack Gunther or stop him from beating up Pat McAfee or something, or that Gunther isn't his opponent and that Goldberg shows up and has like a stare off with John Cena. Cobb, the only thing that makes any sense to me, and this is just like, it makes sense. It's just like, if you have to put Cobb on the show, what would they do? I would think it would be to help Dom retain. And then he like joins Judgment Day, and then they boot out Finn Balor and JD.
Cobb and Judgment Day, I'll pass. Goldberg potentially staring down Cena is something I brought up to you because when we were talking about Cena's booked for Saturday Night's Main Event, what do you do? Well, Goldberg still has one match. I can see that happening. I can definitely see Goldberg squaring up with Gunther. So I think that's more likely than Jeff Cobb. I just don't think either one of them is solid.
I mean, the Goldberg thing seems that all signs would point towards Gunther being the final match for him. I think if people would going with the idea of him facing John Cena, my kind of question would be, do you actually want to see him fight someone he's like someone new and interesting rather than just a load of old men? But yeah, I think that the Gunther thing probably makes the most sense. Like, he beats Pat McAfee, goes to just inflict more punishment, and Goldberg comes out and stares him down. I mean, they've played into it in the past with like the whole Gunther calling out Goldberg in the past, so that seems like the route they're going to take. Jeff Cobb, I mean, I just assumed they would throw him in with like Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu because he's vaguely Samoan looking.
He's an island boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's he from?
Hawaii.
Yeah.
What was his name in Lucha Underground?
Matanza Puerto.
Yeah, the monstrous masked brother of
The
Dario Cueto.
supposed brother of Dario Cueto.
Yeah, the guy that ran the Lucha Underground.
For since he was masked at that time, I was like, oh, I don't know this like luchador guy. I remember that being a thing, and being like, this Matanza Cueto, what's his name, Cueto?
Yeah, Cueto. Yeah.
Back in the day, I remember that being like, yo, this guy's awesome, and then being like, wait a minute, he's not Mexican? Okay,
Well, I mean, hey, maybe they're saving Jeff Cobb for Worlds Collide.
Tell the AAA. It's the big announcement for AAA is they got him. I don't know. Keep your eyes peeled for either of them to pop up at Backlash. Anyone, but anything else on Raw that's worth it? It's mostly stuff that we talked about on the Backlash thing and all. Rusev beats Otis because it's just whatever. And I don't know why I said that so weird. Otis. Maybe I was gonna say OTs. Maybe in my brain. NXT did have some interesting things going on. Joe Hendry was a part of that. We just talked about him earlier. He is going to face Trick Williams for the TNA World title at Battleground, which I'm assuming he's going to retain. But it's all within possibility that maybe Trick wins that title.
Trick Williams is winning the title. and then he's losing it back to Joe at Slammiversary.
When is Slammiversary?
In July.
Okay, that's not too far off. I could see that then. Well, they're going to have their TNA tag team match right before Battleground. It's like the night before, I think. And I mean, that might lead to one thing or another. They do have the story of like Joe Hendry having his injury. Maybe he takes advantage of that or something. It's a possibility. That could be pretty interesting to see like the TNA title changes hands on an NXT show, which is the first time ever type of thing. We'll talk about the, more Battleground predictions when we get down to that. But they also had I was a little bit surprised about this. Kalani Jordan had a match with Zarya. And the idea behind it was basically, it's not 100% a number one contender match, but it was like Kalani, you have to go through Zarya to get a shot at Sol Ruka. And she lost. So I'm like, all right, well, anyway, moving on. So it's always weird to me when they set up a scenario like that and then it's like, never mind, pull the rug out. But I guess they're just going to tell some other kind of way to get around that. And
the story they're telling is Zarya wants to beat Sol Ruca. She's not letting anybody else touch her.
I would think that they would wait to do that.
I thought the story they were telling is that Zarya wants to get in Sol Ruca's pants.
Plenty of people would pay to see that.
I'm not suggesting she videotapes it. I'm just suggesting that's the other side of the story. There's the other side of the story. It was like, because aren't they doing like that whole like in the ladder match where they had that moment where they would like Zarya was tenderly touching Sol Ruca's face on top of the ladder. It's like, does she want to take the title or does she want to ask her out? Like it's one or the other, or potentially both.
Well, she can't record that in NXT because
you have a different perspective, but
she can only record that if Xavier Woods pops up and has his camcorder with him.
Camcorder, God, Tony, give it the times a bit.
Well, aren't they using a camcorder? They weren't using their phones.
Phones are pretty good at filming stuff now.
He might want to go old school. That's the scenario of the camcorder in the closet that people used to have back in the day. That's a discussion for an all talk show episode.
See, now you're going. So now with the closet thing, you're going weirdly R. Kelly, and I don't really like it. So that's like.
Yeah, how did we get here? Like,
hey, blame Callum. He's the one with the Zarya thing. But let's talk about the thing that I got on the thumbnail right now. They did the 25-man battle royal, and Myles Borne wins the title shot for Oba Femi at Battleground. Now, in retrospect, with the Joe Hendry and Trick Williams thing, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's why Trick Williams isn't doing it. I just assumed that he was like the shoe-in and the obvious pick for obvious reasons. But I am very surprised by this. And by that, I don't mean that I like hate it or anything else like that. For anybody that's looking at the thumbnail and wondering why it's like Myles Borne with question marks and stuff, it's not a matter of me thinking that this is a bad idea. I actually think this is pretty cool. I'm just confused about like why him, why now, and why in this kind of scenario and all. Because
you can take a shot when you've got a card that is going to be headlined by the women or the TNA title. You can take a shot at the other stuff.
See, I get that, and I totally understand that, and I wrote that in a couple articles too. Of like, yeah, they've got the women's match and they got the Joe Hendry thing. Like, they don't need the biggest possible Oba Femi match. But I still would have thought that a few other people would have potentially been higher up on the card to get that lesser main event spot. Like, I would have thought that maybe Shawn Spears would have gotten that, and it would have been like, oh, okay, so he had a bunch of people help him, and then it's like, we want to see Oba Femi squash him, or that would have been something with Ethan Page getting a one shot, or that maybe even Charlie Dempsey would have been in that case. Dempsey tried to take the title shot. It was like, hey, thanks for winning this for the No Quarter Catch crew. I'm going to go fight him. But yeah, like Alexis King, or, the people that have been fighting for the singles titles, even if it's the North American title or the Heritage Cup, I would have thought that they would have been a little bit higher up on there. And for it to be Myles Borne, that really shocked me. And I was like, when I'm watching the show and they're down to the final four was Javon Evans, Ethan Page, Shawn Spears, and Myles Borne. I was like, oh, that's really interesting that they go with Myles Borne as one of the final four. He'll be the next one out, and it'll be between Javon and Spears and Page. And then it'll probably be Javon's fighting both of them. He gets one of them out and the other one just dumps him over. And then for it to be, there goes Javon, and then Borne takes out Spears and Page. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Well, that's cool. A guy that wasn't even fighting for the tag team titles, let alone the North American title, let alone the world title, is just like leveling up in that. He's not going to win, he's not going to beat Oba Femi, but I think it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, hopefully it gets, Charlie Dempsey on screen more. They're all talented in the No Quarter Catch crew, so I'd like to see them used more. I mean, Charlie Dempsey only gets to wrestle when he's wrestling for other promotions, which is ridiculous. So I want to see them do more.
I think it's a good move. I mean, I'd say I don't really know much about Myles Borne because I don't really watch NXT, so I don't even recall ever seeing one of his matches. But in terms of it's always good every now and again to have just a shot contender for the World Championship, because it then adds a lot more jeopardy to when you do matches like these Battle Royals or these Iron Survivor matches where there's multiple people involved, and you can just have, maybe a real underdog can win these and get their opportunity. So, yeah, and it helps position him on a little bit of a rung higher as well. He's obviously going to lose, but it helps elevate him a bit, and it doesn't really do any harm because, as Rob says, it's going to be headlined by Fakir versus Jordan Grace, so it doesn't really matter anyway.
I think, and again, maybe when we come back around to Battleground predictions, maybe something will happen on TV that changes my mind about this, but I think it's going to be one of those scenarios where Borne puts up a good fight, but Dempsey gets involved and inadvertently kind of screws him, or blatantly screws him out of just jealousy. But I'm down to see where they have this going. And it's cool to see somebody getting a random push like that, because that's what Battle Royals are really good for. If you want to push somebody out of nowhere, instead of doing the whole thing where it's like you have to realistically have them go up to somebody, challenge them, tell a story, do the whole thing. The point of a battle royal is anybody can win. And then when you prove, like what Count just said, when you prove that, yeah, anybody can win once in a while, instead of just the names that are obvious, then that makes you pay attention to the next one. And next time around that they're doing a battle royal, whether it's for like a women's title shot or a tag team title shot or whatever, I mean, you could just see almost anyone win. And for all we know, when they throw somebody like an Evolve person in there, it's like, it could have been John Legacy could have ended up winning that. I think it's pretty cool. And Yoshiki, is it Yoshiki or is it Yoshiki? I don't remember for sure. Inamura has left NXT for now. That's another like quick news snippet. Chase U has new attire. That was the thing that they wanted to make sure that they spotlighted on the episode. Andre Chase got given some new threads from Kel Dixon and Uriah Connors. NXT wasn't a bad show this week. That so far was the show that I enjoyed the most, more so than Raw and Evolve and Dynamite and last week's SmackDown, and I'm assuming SmackDown for this episode that's coming up tonight. Let's pass over to Dynamite. It has a new theme song, You Wanted War by Sum 41. So I'm so excited is officially gone now, which I like that.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Better.
I don't know why they did that ever.
It wasn't the best fit, but I like that song better. So if I'm going to listen to one of them, I'd rather listen to that. This song, it's whatever. It's generic. I don't care. You guys have any thoughts?
I like the song. I mean, I think Tony just likes to flex his muscles when it comes to getting these songs. Just feel like, hey, I paid for Elton John. Hey, I paid for Sum 41. Hey, I paid for, I'm so excited. Like, okay.
Maybe it's still that mentality of playing with the action figures where you could just play any song you want.
I mean, absolutely. If he's got the money for it, fuck yeah, man. Go ahead.
To be honest, I don't listen to the theme song because because I watch every single AEW show on replay after it's been live. I just click onto when the show starts and then just skip whatever the theme song is because I don't care. I just want to get into whatever the action is.
Well, the action started off with some promos and stuff. Very promo heavy on this episode. Wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of that. A lot of stuff to report. And found myself very far behind on Wednesday night. A lot of the stuff really is like, that Paige and Ospreay talk about how they're going to win that Double or Nothing. It sets up a tag team match for next week, like that kind of stuff. But they had a 4-way eliminator match. Toni Storm beats all 3 other people, so she doesn't have a number 1 contender yet. Seems like she's going to defend it sometime next week, either on the Beach Break, Dynamite, or Collision. Seems a little bit more like it might be Collision, but I don't think that they've announced who she's going to defend it against. She's cut one of her promos on Collision of a lot of sexual innuendo and stuff. So,
She basically said she's still taking on all comers, so I presume they're going to do another eliminator match.
They are doing another eliminator match.
Has their opponent been
confirmed
announced yet?
Yeah. It's Sky Blue and 2 opponents to be named, and Tony Storm and another 4-way on Wednesday.
Sky Blue said that Sky Blue had the promo on Collision saying that she's coming back, so that's good to get her back in the action immediately.
Yeah, it's been a while. Long time. Hurt Syndicate thing still being dragged out. MJF beats up Top Flight, and Lashley's like, all right, well, we'll talk about this next week. Although now they have a legal counsel guy named Harrison Landau, I think is what his name was, who basically said, don't talk about it. Because it's just like, okay. Every little thing's a drip on this, and I don't even want to see the end result of it. This has been a feud that I'm not interested in. I can't get into it.
I think it's been great. But it's enough every single week that's slightly different. This one, you finally got to see MJF finally show the aggression that they're looking for. Like, he's trying to appeal to all of them in different ways. And so, as I say, I still think that this has ended up with him facing Lashley at Double or Nothing. But you have to take time to get there. Like, Double or Nothing's still like several weeks away at this point, so can't rush everything.
Can you roosh it though?
Where do you stand on possibly seeing Cedric Alexander next week?
There's a chance, and it could be one of those things where it's like next week, the big things like you seem like you're gonna go with MJF and be like, we are gonna add a new member, and it's Cedric Alexander instead. And then it's like, oh fuck you, you know. I'd rather that be the case than for MJF to join.
Yeah, I think they deserve to finish that story, you know, on their own terms.
I think at this point they've gone so far that they can't not have MJF join the group, because there's no alternative really. They're not going to turn MJF babyface and feud with them. So
well, they also have MJF really involved in the finals of the Owen because he keeps confronting Hanger and Ospreay.
Well, I think that's just setting the seeds for a future world title match. Probably even like that's, for me, that's like setting up for a title match at probably Revolution next year rather than anything else. Like, and that's just how AEW works. They set seeds for long term stuff going along. He's already had feuds with both Hangman and Ospreay, but they need to just keep it simmering so they can bring it back eventually. I wouldn't read too much into it beyond the fact that if he becomes part of the Hurt Business, then he's going to be kind of either their front man or their world title challenger. Maybe even utilise the Hurt Business to win the title eventually.
Let's see what else we got. Rhino popped up, made his AEW debut. Nick Wayne beats him, retains the ROH World TV Championship in a pretty quick match. But hey, it was in Detroit. Rhino's from Detroit.
Yeah, just a,
cool to see
nice nostalgia pop, yeah, for him to turn up. I saw Sean tweet about the fact that like he's I can't remember the whole list of promotions that they said that Rhino has now had a match in, but it's just so long. Like it's WWE, TNA, AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Noah, NXT, like ECW, obviously, WCW, like loads and loads and loads of places where he's just wrestled a match. So just shows the longevity of this guy. They're going from like the back end of the Attitude Era all the way into today.
And he looks the same.
He does just look the same. He's just a bit. He's just a little bit more grizzled, a little bit wider, but pretty much the same guy.
Whatever he and R-Truth are like doing for their diets or their, you know, Fountain of Youth treatments or something, we got to figure that out. Another old wrestler making an appearance on this episode was Zach Gowen on
Collision. Yes.
Collision. Ricochet had a thing where, you know, he pointed out that Zach Gowen was in the crowd, and eventually it leads to Zach Gowen getting in the ring and then, you know, trying to stop Ricochet from cutting the hair of one of the security people. It's just, I guess he's going to continue to do the scissor thing that way. And then Ricochet stole Zach Gowen's prosthetic leg and ran off with that.
Yes, I mean that's someone who was like who started watching wrestling pretty much at the time that Zach Gowen made his like short stint in WWE. It's quite a weird nostalgia pop to just see the one-legged wrestler appear in on this show, and then just for him to get involved even, and they've announced that he's going to have a match with Ricochet next week on Dynamite, which is nuts to think about because I don't think he's wrestled for a long time. So yeah, we'll see how that ends up going. But yeah, it's a nice angle. I mean,
by the way.
oh yeah, well he was super young when he joined WWE. Like he was in his early 20s at that point. I always remember like the story that he tells, like cause on the shoot interviews he's given in the time since, how WWE originally went to sign another guy who they thought was Zach Gowen, who was just another one-legged wrestler. And so eventually they got around to signing Zach Gowen instead. Yeah, as I think it's just an interesting little like weird match that we're going to get, which is just a fun little nostalgia trip for certain people. And yeah, they're definitely leaning into the whole scissors thing about and just everything revolves around Ricochet being bald.
So there were two one-legged wrestlers at the same time.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure there's quite a few now. Yeah.
Them apart.
I mean, like for them to be on the same radar and all that, like, well, I'm surprised that they didn't put them in a tag team or something. If they would have potentially signed both of them.
Well, Kerry Von Erich was a one-legged wrestler as well. So it's
he was a one-footed wrestler.
1 foot, yeah.
He had the leg, he didn't have the foot.
Oh, it's close enough to be. It's approximate distance.
It's close as you could get without being the same thing, right? It's not like it's like, oh, he's missing an ear,
Yeah, he hasn't lost half his body. He's just like just slightly, it's gone slightly over the knee rather than under the knee. But that's totally.
Some other things on the Collision, and actually there wasn't anything else on Collision that I'm thinking of. It's a lot of
the Death Riders helped Chris Statlander beat Willow. Yeah,
Marina came out, did that whole thing, but Stat seemingly is not like 100% involved in that. They're going to do a tribute to Steve Mongo McMichael next week on Collision, and Ric Flair is going to be a part of that. I don't know exactly why they're doing that right here.
They're in Chicago.
Oh, is that why they're doing it? Okay, that makes more sense then.
Which is fair enough. Like he was obviously his pro wrestling career is synonymous with WCW, and AEW's kind of, well, because it's on the Turner Network, is in the same.
In Tony's mind, it is WCW sometimes. He loves that.
Which Tony are you talking about? Shivani, Khan, or Mango?
I meant Khan, but I think in your mind it's WCW too.
Okada retains over, or then this would eliminate her match, beats Kevin Knight, Joe and Castagnoli.
Technically a title match, but yeah, it's the same thing. You know what it's going to get, and then Joe beats Claudio because they need to set him up for his inevitable loss next week in the steel cage match, but you have to make him look strong. Got another like PWG style 6-man tag involving Ricochet and the Young Bucks against Mike Bailey, Mark Briscoe, and Swerve Strickland, which sort of like Matt Jackson just pinning Swerve Strickland, which is, that's Swerve Strickland doesn't take pinfall losses that often, so that was quite interesting.
Yeah, then we got the whole thing with FTR and Nigel and company. Yeah, not my favorite story.
You're not liking the FTR heel turn?
No, I don't know. It's like the turn with Edge was so kind of just like, all right, you're doing that. I get it. Like it makes sense, but that didn't start a spark for me. And then since then, for them to be like bullying like Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness and all, I just don't feel like it's going to lead anywhere that's really going to be anything great for me. And some of the bullying thing can be kind of fun, but for the most part, I'm just sort of like, all right, I just kind of want to skip to the end.
What is the end for you?
I don't know. That's why I'm more curious about the end. Because it's like, well, where is this all going to lead to? Like, what's going to be the big thing? Because I don't think that it's Edge and Christian, like some people are saying. Because to me, that's like they're not indicating that like at all. But if it ends up being that it's like, all right, this is all leading up to Cope and some completely other random person like Cope and Speedball against them, I'll just be like, that was it, you know. And then we can move on. Or if it's them fighting for the tag titles against Hurt Syndicate, like I'd be more interested in seeing that match than the build up.
I'm hoping it's Edge and Christian. I don't think they get there right away, but I'm hoping the plan is to get around to Edge and Christian against FTR.
Yeah, I assume that's the long-term thing. I think in the short term, you're probably looking at a Cope and Daniel Garcia against FTR at some point. But I imagine, because they're still having to deal with the Christian and patriarchy issue about how they separate them from each other. But I think the long-term goal is just making sure that FTR are heel so they can eventually have that match with Cope and Christian.
Oh, that's all the notes that I got. Any other kind of topics you guys want to round out here?
I see that Sean just reported a little while ago that Willow is in her contract year.
I'm assuming she'll resign
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see her going anywhere. I think she's. I imagine they see so much potential in her and want to build the women's division around her eventually. So I think they'll give her what she needs to stick around.
Also, fuck Eric Bischoff for making excuses for Hulk Hogan. See that's a thing.
Oh, dude, it's always fuck Eric Bischoff. So
yeah,
you don't even need to be for that. For that instance, it's always been fuck Eric Bischoff.
Wait, what did he say?
So, I'm proud to be Hulk Hogan's friend. I've known him for almost 30 years. I've been in him with every situation you can imagine. It's about blah 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 blah. Basically saying like, oh, I've seen him be such a great guy. He always signs autographs and whatnot, and that it's like it was a one-time mistake. No, it isn't. Hogan's a piece of shit, and people need to be held accountable. You don't have those kind of.
That does bring up the Shelton Benjamin tweet.
Benjamin Shelton, you mean? Fucking hell.
Because I saw the reaction to Benjamin's tweet before I saw anything else, and I'm like,
me too.
I have gone through plenty of Hulk Hogan interviews. I haven't heard him say Shelton Benjamin. Maybe that's because I'm just skipping over him saying Benjamin Shelton. Because, God, he really stuck to his guns on that. Called him Benjamin Shelton like 3 interviews.
But and acts like they've had like a big history together. Like, oh, I've got in the ring with Kurt Angle. I'm the one who broke in Brock Lesnar and all this. That it's like, oh, you know, my great history with Benjamin Shelton. You don't even know the fucker's name.
I'm not going to say it's surprising in the least to see Bischoff say that. I think my favorite take on Hulk Hogan is Rollins, which is just he's been a great person to me. That doesn't mean he's not a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people need to apply that to other things in life. Family members, friends, you know. They might love you, but they might be terrible people. Or, you know, vice versa. Again, middle fingers to a lot of things.
Mercedes Monet's $99 a month.
That was funny, yeah. And she even starts breaking. She starts like she has to block herself from laughing about it. If anybody didn't see that, it was the dig at the Mercedes Moné $99 to texting her or whatever the hell thing. And she's like, oh, Bailey's going to be upset. She's going to spend $100 to go text her best friend. That was great.
Oh, and fuck Coach.
What did he say?
He's openly saying, like, I don't know why Bailey didn't get released last week. She's boring and adds nothing and she's washed. Like, what the fuck? No, fuck you.
Any other hot tags?
I don't know, Callum, you want to say fuck anybody else?
Add some more people into the Fuck That Guy Club?
There's plenty of people, but we might as well. We don't want to be here all evening, so.
Well, show your support by leaving a comment below. Show your support on all the other things we mentioned before. Show your support for PBS, by the way, everybody. Try to keep this world from falling apart. And, you can find different things on the link tree at amangotree.com or anthonymango.com and find my social media accounts and everything that's up over there. Follow those things if you are on those platforms. Who knows which other ones I'll be adding in the future. I'm trying to figure out whenever the hell they have Neptune on there and such, but we'll see. So follow me, follow Smark Out Moment, follow Fanboys Anonymous. Maybe some movement on the front of the series of what if so-and-so had a Pokemon type / team. I'm probably going to put all that stuff over on Fanboys Anonymous, even if on the pro wrestler side of things, but I have to find the time to be able to do that stuff, but I'm working on some more graphic things here and there, and we'll see. But stay tuned for those, and make sure that when you're following what I've got going on, that you also follow what Rob and Callum have up.
Yep, check me out everywhere at Dude Felice. Check out my work at Fightful.com. Support Fightful, support Sean Ross Sapp and the work that he does over there, because, that trickles down to me, and I always appreciate the support. And check out what Callum's got going on with the Fantasy League and the Power Rankings.
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Weekmaster14. The Power Rankings every single Saturday on SmackDown.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And after that, you can also check out the Fantasy League, also at WWEFantasyLeague.com to see the start of it. As of Backlash will be the first show that we score points from, and the first prediction contest as well. So find out how that sets everyone off on who gets the best start of the this year's season as we head towards next year's WrestleMania.
And keep in mind, everybody, the next time you're going to be hearing from us is tomorrow with the Backlash pay-per-view point post-show. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you have your email alerts set up for when we go live. Tune in, join the chat, join the discussion. And in the meantime, leave your comments below, and we will see you then. Adios for now, though. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.